Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Our Thread, the podcast, bringing our content to you. I'm All It Is, and today I'm here with my pals, Beware, Cap, Doc, and Savage. And we're back with another bracket battle, Django Unchained versus The Wolf of Wall Street. Two movies that still have relevant topics we're plagued with today, hatred and greed. Two things that shouldn't be so relevant, but unfortunately they are. Now, folks, I don't want to get you down. We're here to have fun, and I can assure you there's no haters on our thread. And the only thing we might be greedy about is our favorite movie making it to the finals. But I promise you, folks, I won't be biased. I want to find the greatest movie of all time, and that's what we're here for, folks. So before we get into the matchup, a special shout out to tonight's sponsor, 5 Hour Energy, a little drink made for hardworking people. Everybody has those days where they need a little boost. So if that 2:30 feeling hits you, grab a 5 Hour Energy for that boost we all need sometimes. Or if you like Beware, you might need that boost around 8 o'clock when your day's over, but you got to start your second job producing music or even having a podcast. So I took one tonight for the occasion, so I'm amped up, folks, and ready to go. But speaking of producing music, let's hear that intro music made by our thread member, Beware.
Good morning!
Morning!
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Well, it's very, homey.
What? Are you kidding? We got us a family here.
I hope you realize how you hurt my feelings.
I'm afraid you're just too darn loud. Next place.
Just take it easy, man.
I'm perfectly confident.
Yeah, waving the fucking gun around?
Calmer than you are.
Look, I made a mistake, all right? It didn't make any difference anyway.
Hey, I'm letting it go. But don't say it doesn't matter. Every line matters.
Get off my back!
Don't fuck with my plan!
And like that, he's gone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Our Thread podcast, bringing our content to you, featuring All It Is.
It's official, old buddy. Who has been.
Beware.
From then on, he was known as Benny the Jet Rodriguez.
The Doc.
You're the doc, Doc.
The Cap.
If you already know the answers to your questions, then why ask? Pig fuck!
And myself, Savage.
I'm 6'5", 220, and there's two of them.
Homework's in. Let's begin. Django Unchained versus Wolf of Wall Street. Lots of Leo love, but unfortunately, these Leo characters in these two movies are horrible people. But the way they're portrayed is great. Two great movies, no doubt. So let's get down to the breakdown and find out which one's greater. Here we go, folks. Oh, come on, thread members. Folks, I'm happy to be here with my pals, our thread members. I'm excited to get into this breakdown. Why don't we get into our
sloppy synopsis?
Who's got something to say about one of these movies or both of them? Let's break it down, folks. Let's go. Who's up?
I'll start.
Beware.
I think that both movies are quite over the top. Not in the way that they're made necessarily, but the subject matter of the movies is very over the top. Albeit true, you know, all the stuff that's going on is true to life. They're historical stories. One of them is, I think both of them are a little bit, twisted from the origins that they really are. One of them is working more in the favor of, an ideology, trying to reverse racism or trying to get the best of racists, I suppose, in the slave driven past, which is relatively topical right now. And the other one is Jordan Belfort's kind of twisted, embellished tale of his past and how he became, the Wolf of Wall Street as he became known to be. And I think I'll leave it at that, kind of setting the table for both movies just being super messed up in their various ways and own respective ways as well.
I thought it was cool how like for Django Unchained, I hadn't seen that in a long time. I feel like every one of these movies I always say that, I haven't seen this movie since it first came out, but I hadn't seen that movie since it first came out. So that's not so much the same for Wolf of Wall Street, which I've seen probably a dozen times or so. But rewatching Django Unchained was a lot of fun. I didn't actually realize how much I enjoyed that movie the first time I saw it. So it was nice to see kind of the intersection of like a blaxploitation movie mixed with like a spaghetti western. I thought it had a lot of really cool elements, and not your prototypical Quentin Tarantino movie as well. So I really enjoyed. Obviously, I enjoyed Wolf of Wall Street as well. It's Scorsese. It's a fantastic movie. But I was really surprised how much I enjoyed Django Unchained.
I agree. I've probably seen them equally amount of times, probably about 3 each. And I did some extra credit this week, folks. I actually went and read the Wolf of Wall Street book. I only got about halfway through and listened to some of the audio book too. But like Ben was saying, or Beware was saying, a lot of this actually is very true to the story. And being a Scorsese film, it's funny how much he did take the dialogue that was written right into the book. And as we go through some scenes and stuff like that, I probably will point out some stuff that actually is true, verbatim, spot on. And like Beware also was saying, like these times, Django Unchained, it's hitting different right now. Obviously, to think slavery has relevance today is insane. It's crazy, but what it comes down to is there are a lot of relevant undertones, and it's a scary thing. And Tarantino's wonderful about kind of turning a hero, a legend, into this made up story, if you will. And I have a lot of fun with that. And like Savage was saying, I really, really enjoyed Django Unchained. Both movies are fantastic. Scorsese versus Quentin Tarantino. I think we have 2 of those that fall in the bracket matchup, which is pretty impressive. What do we got? Goodfellas versus The
Departed.
There you go. So
yeah.
that's a pretty interesting matchup, or like that's greats going against the greats, and that's the way we like to have it here with this 64 movie breakdown. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to the Doc and see what Doc's got to say about these 2 films.
Yeah, I love hearing everybody's perspective on each of these movies, because I totally agree. I mean, these are quintessential films of kind of our era, like our generation. You know, these came out not too long ago. And I think, you know, we've already brought up multiple times that this was, you know, Tarantino against Scorsese, arguably, you know, 2 of the best directors, writers of our time. And I think, you know, it's crazy kind of pitting these 2 against each other. And, you know, it's interesting, the past couple of weeks, we try to pull on similarities of some of the movies and themes, and I think some of them were already kind of mentioned here, but there's a lot of differences, and these are kind of somewhat different movies. There are some themes, there are some similarities, but they are different movies. And it's going to be fun, I think, talking about the scenes, talking about the characters, because each of them maybe had different angles, different agendas. And so I think it'll be a good conversation going along with that. But to speak to what you guys are already mentioning about, like how potentially kind of watching Django in this kind of current context that we're in, it definitely hits differently. And I actually watched this on Friday, which was actually Juneteenth, you know, the Freedom Day, basically. And, you know, to kind of watch a movie about slavery on the day that, you know, they abolished slavery and the day that they kind of celebrate that definitely, you know, hit differently. And so I'll have some more things to say about that. And then Wolf of Wall Street, you know, like real quick, you know, Django is, you know, historical fiction, kind of similar to a movie, a Quentin Tarantino movie that we already reviewed, kind of Inglourious Bastards. Whereas Wolf of Wall Street is kind of like, it is truth. And I'm interested to hear what all this has to say about, you know, reading the book and to add to that. But like, truth sometimes is stranger than fiction, you know, or is more ridiculous and outrageous than fiction. And there's a lot of interesting things. And all it is, I'm sure you know, like how they had Jordan Belfort, the real life Jordan Belfort, like on set, you know, and coaching Leonardo DiCaprio on his character and how outrageous he was, and helping him kind of get that right. And it's kind of crazy, like he was a character. I'm interested to talk more about that. I don't know, both of these are forces of movies, and I really don't have much more to say about that in general, but I'm really ready to talk about some more of the specifics. So what do you got to say about this, Cap?
Yeah, I really, really, really love Django. I've seen it a bunch of times. Wolf of Wall Street, first time that I saw it, there's a lot of hype everybody was talking about it, and this is a movie that I didn't see in the theater, which is kind of rare for me, but when I did see it, I wasn't too taken by it. However, watching it the second, maybe at this point the third time, really, really enjoyed it. Enjoyed Leo's antics on screen. But if we're comparing the movies, I'd like to, aside from the major themes of Pat said, of greed and hatred, or vengeance, or whatever, I'd like to point out that both of these movies have really strong friendship themes between Donnie and Jordan. I think when I think about the scenes of them, getting to know each other, smoking crack together is one of them.
in the middle of the day, mind you.
Yeah, in the middle of the day.
Me and Cap have done that once, actually. It really was a bonding experience for us, but we're not going to share that with our folks out here, but it was fantastic,
After lunch, yeah. So you have that bond, and that continues throughout the movie to the point where Jordan saves Donnie, or at least tries. And he saves him twice. The spinach part where he sees watching Popeye on TV, he's all fucked up, and he thinks to grab his spinach, which is his pile of cocaine, and just pour it into his face.
What does
and
he say?
Move out of the way. Expressions.
Yeah. Make way.
Oh! Suicide! Oh, God! Oh, God! Move aside me!
So he saves his life, and in the same way, you get Dr. King saving Django, freeing him. They're sort of like, they make this deal. You help me, I help you. He teaches him, but then, he realizes that he's slowly realizing Django's story. It becomes more than just this, I need you for this. It becomes a friendship, but he also is teaching him his craft, which is like, master apprentice type relationship, which I always feel like if it's one-on-one, especially in a movie, is a really close bond. But at some point, Dr. King, I think it's when he shoots Don Johnson, Big Daddy, off of his horse, he just says he's a natural.
Natural.
He very much is a natural. He's gifted with his gun, and you see that. I think maybe my favorite scene leading up to the climax of the movie, where they go meet, they go to Candyland, is the sort of the montage of him shooting the snowman, and just realizing that he is Deadshot, So I just think that the friendship factor of both movies really, really wowed me. And the reason I didn't love Wolf of Wall Street is just because I felt like everybody loved it because it was celebrating what it's like to be super duper rich. And I really don't think that it is about that, but it's not just about that.
I think you've inspired a few of our thread members to say some things, so we're going to pass it to Beware, and I think the Doc got something to say too.
Yeah, I just wanted to say Pat made some great points speaking about the friendships, and I think as a result of the friendships, it's really also about two people, Django and Jordan, respectively, growing into themselves, finding their natural talent and growing into themselves. They kind of fall into the opportunity to really become what they thrive at. And, maybe had they gone a certain other route, they wouldn't have done that. But, that's
a great point.
Yeah, as a matter of circumstance, they happen to find that thing within themselves.
And to Jordan's, I guess you say he's a bad person, but he it seems like he genuinely loves the people that he is working with towards the end of the movie. You see how much he cares about them and how much he wants them to share in his success, which I think is an unselfish quality about him and the movie that is about essentially greed. But one last thing I'd just like to point out is that I love Django's Leo character, Calvin Candy. I love that Leo isn't the lead as he usually is. Him playing a supporting role, especially as the villain or the heavy. He's amazing. He's believably evil, and that's it, really.
What do you got to say, Doc? Good points, Cap.
Yeah, man. So just I really liked Cap's point about the friendship, and I know Beware touched on this a little bit too, and that was actually something I hadn't considered. And so as he was kind of talking about that, I was pondering it, and yeah, man, I think, all good movies, we're drawn to good movies because there's good relationships, good, strong relationships. And, I liked what Beware said about how, these characters had to kind of grow into themselves, but the two, in kind of addition to that, the two main characters, Jordan and Django, are driven, and they've got this kind of goal. Django's is, of course, finding his love of his life and his wife and reuniting with her, and along the way revenging some wrongs that were done to him and his wife. And then he kind of found the perfect supporting kind of sidekick, although it kind of initially comes on where he functions as Dr. King's sidekick, becomes a more mutual relationship, and I love that friendship. And then with Jordan, he is he wants to be rich, and like that's his goal, that's his drive, and he finds somebody. Is it Donnie? Is that his name?
Yeah, Donnie.
Yeah, Donnie finds Donnie, who has a similar goal, but is willing to kind of support him and be his wingman, and kind of commits to him early on. He kind of forms a team that they all kind of work together and enable each other towards that goal. And so, yeah, Cap, I think that's a really great point, that kind of friendship, that relationship, that kind of strength and bond, and how that really propelled much of this storyline in both of these movies. Really good point.
Yeah, and that's a beautiful scene where Jordan and Donnie meet, and he's just having lunch by himself, and he comes up to him and says, "Say your car. What do you do for a living? How much money do you make?"
And he answers all the questions.
Yeah,
the best part. Yeah, I made $70,000 last month, and he's like,
72 actually.
Show me a pay stub, and I quit my job right now.
Right.
I work for you.
Well, since I'm here with my pals, I got to talk about the friendship dynamic too. But also, what I thought of when Cap and Doc were playing tennis was that Django is a little bit of a father figure, or I'm sorry, Dr. Schultz or Dr. King Schultz. It's a father relationship. There's friendship, of course, but he's teaching them. There's love, and he selfishly explains why he's selfishly using him, but they use each other, and they in the end, I mean, there's the greatest sacrifice a friendship could be. And he says, "I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself," which I'm going to get to that scene later, where he really lays himself out for, even though what comes after is chaos ensues afterwards. So, but Wolf of Wall Street, yes, if I am going to stick to Belfort being a bad guy, and I'm going to explain that more, why I don't think he's a good dude. But I am I love the friendship stuff. I know we toss around the L word, the love yous, a lot, and there's a lot of love yous and hugs and kisses on the cheeks, and it shows you like he really wants to be with his gutties, his pals, and we all can appreciate that. But really, when it comes down to it, his drug of choice was money, and he's an addict, and he's still out there doing motivational speeches and all this stuff, but it's still, he was addicted to money, and the ride that came from that, it was almost unfathomable, but of course completely of course that's happened, we know that, but to hear a story that direct, and let alone be a true story, is very crazy. And that's another thing too, like, some people watch this movie, like my cousin, for example, watched this movie, and he actually literally graduated and went to Wall Street. He was inspired by it. That's kind of fucked up, if you ask me. If my cousin's out there listening, sorry, buddy, but to see that type of greed and want to be a part of it is a sickness, I'd have to say. And that's just how I feel about it. But we're gonna get more into some more stuff. But right now, I think we've got our sloppy synopsis out of the way. I want to go into best scenes, but our thread, I want to say, before you just say your best scene, let's talk about a few scenes, because all of them have great scenes, and I want to do just that. And I'm going to pass it. Can
you pass it to me really quick?
Yes, I can,
Just,
Cap.
You made me think when you talked about how Dr. Schultz is sort of like a father figure to Django. It made me think. I hadn't really thought about that. He's definitely teaching him, but I thought about that scene where it's nighttime and they're done riding for the day, and you see Dr. Schultz telling Django a story, and I think it's like a German fable, and I think it has to do with, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it has to do with his Broomhilda's name, right? So the camera angles that they use, they have him sort of, I think, sitting, they're like in a cave, but it's like Dr. Schultz is above him, and Django is sitting on the ground, and it's like he's got his hands around his knees, and it's almost like he is a child listening to an adult tell a story. So yeah, I mean, I just got that kind of sense.
He keeps interrupting him because he's so excited.
He's like asking questions,
like a kid.
Yeah, I love that. Like, I loved real quick, but I love that scene stood out to me too, specifically because of that. Like, he said, "I'm going to tell you a story" or something like that, and you see Jamie Foxx walk over, sit down, put his hands around his knees, and it's like attention.
Yes, he's attentive. Like he's enthralled with the story, like any receptive, eager student would be.
And talking about student, he actually learns how to read throughout the course, even though we don't really see it, other than when, of course, he spells out his name and, of course, says the D is silent.
But he's also like asking what words mean.
Great.
The scene you guys are referencing in regards to the Broomhilda Siegfried story, I think that was, I'm going to transition into the best scene here, and I'm not going to talk about necessarily best scene. This isn't my favorite scene, or I don't even think it's the best scene per se, but I love the scene because I was watching it with Savage the other day, and as he pointed out, it is the whole movie in one scene, is in that he tells them exactly what they're about to go do, and like, by giving that backstory on Broomhilda and Siegfried, and it's like, based on that tale, where the rest of the movie is going to go. You know exactly what's going to happen. You get that backlog, and I think that's cool in itself, beyond the teacher student aspect of it. But I think on the flip side of that, and what I thought was interesting when watching Wolf of Wall Street, was that the similar scene exists in Wolf of Wall Street, which is the chest beating scene. It's the same scene, because he also, in that scene, Matthew McConaughey's character tells him exactly what the deal is. Like, no, you don't do that. This is what's going down. You're going like this. You're going to make money. You're going to tell them how it works. This is the system. This is how it works. And you don't with the drinking, and it's the same scene in both movies, except it's just coming from obviously a completely different place. Setting. One of them's in the top of a skyscraper. One of them's in a cave. Of course, that's the case, right? But I thought that was just really cool how they both movies about 30-40 minutes in have that tone setting scene.
Yeah, a little good
foreshadowing.
And
I've got a bunch of other great scenes, but before I kind of spit those out, we should probably make 2 passes around for this section.
That's a great point.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
So I just watched Wolf of Wall Street today. So fresh in my head is the scene where they have to travel very quickly to Sweden by way of their giant yacht. And I just thought that was hilarious. They've got Captain Ted. And maybe this kind of falls under best quote too for me, but like, I cracked up when he just goes, "The fucking jet skis just went overboard."
Just went overboard.
Right before that, he goes, "You don't know shit about Chop."
Yeah, you don't know shit about shots.
I have to, before I pass it to Savage, talk about that scene because little facts with Iz here. That is very accurate to what actually happened. That yacht actually had a helicopter and a plane on it. It was, the feet of it was exactly how it is in the movie. He does ask for drugs at the end. His friend does got to go get him out of the thing. Everything is pretty much accurate. They even go up at one point to actually undo the helicopter to let it push it off. Belfort does and pushes the helicopter off the ship, which had to be pretty freaking dangerous. But I also just want to say one point, and I don't mean to dampen your shit, but when that plane crashes and the bird flies in, that also happened, except he did not witness that. He actually heard about that. But also, 3 people died on that plane crash. And I just heard Jordan Belfort do a speech, and he talks about that. And he goes, yeah, and that weekend I lost a boat and I lost a plane. No mentions of the 3 lives that were lost on the plane coming to rescue him. And that's truthfully where I decided, I don't like this guy. And he's not a good guy. He's funny. And what liking your friends or loving your friends doesn't make you a good person. So I got to pass it to the doc.
Yeah, man. So I'm gonna keep going off of that. So I did some research, did a little homework too, and got to see Jordan Belfort kind of for who he is. And he is all adrenaline. He's all energy. He's a character, and you definitely see like, okay, yeah, this is a lot of what we saw in the movie is pretty real to life. And he even said like that boat sinking scene, yep, that'll happen, and talked about that for a little bit. Only thing that was difficult about that is that was kind of totally not random, but like it wasn't in the storyline.
Facts with Doc
that they told in The Wolf of Wall Street. They had to kind of figure out how to fit it in, and it was actually Leo's idea to fit it in to go visit the aunt who passed away, and so like that didn't actually happen. Aunt passed away in real life, but the timeline wasn't work out anyways. Another thing, though, that I learned about Jordan Belfort to kind of go along with is his notion of him being just not a good guy, is that, two things, and these aren't the only 2 things, but 2 things, is that when he did get caught, the scene at the end of the movie where he kind of says, fuck it, like, I'm coming back.
I'm not fucking leaving.
And kind of comes back and
fucking staying.
Yeah, fucking stand. That didn't happen. He actually did go, and he actually did rat on all his friends and get them all in trouble, and got a reduced sentence as a result. And
4 years, Doc? 3 or 4?
4. He only served 2. One of the things, those stipulations, was that he had to pay back, I think it was $115 million.
Yeah, he's still paying back money right now. Actually.
He still owes over $91 million. Again,
wow.
And I don't think he's a good dude because, 1, ratted on his boys, and then 2, like, he's just not trying to make an effort to pay back.
Sounds very savage, if you will. But speaking of that, why don't we go to Savage, because I want to hear what he has to say.
There's a few things that I kind of wanted to put out there as well. I'm incredibly thankful that Jamie Foxx took the role. I think when you're cast with that many people of that ilk and of that quality, of high quality, I think it's hard to stand out. Granted, he's the main character as Django, but I think he not only holds his own, he excels at what he does in that movie, and I wish he was in more movies like that.
Hey, real quick, I don't want to interrupt your flow, Will or Savage, but do you know who was actually who that role was actually written for?
I don't.
Anybody?
I have no idea, Doc.
Any guesses?
Let me see.
Will Smith.
Denzel Washington.
Hey, Beware came with it. Will Smith.
Nice.
Yeah.
I can see that almost in a weird way. Yeah.
He hasn't gone that dark though. Really.
I think that Jamie Foxx. There's no way that Will Smith could pull that off, in my opinion. Not in the way that Jamie Foxx did.
No,
absolutely.
Right. It was Will Smith, and he actually ended up passing. And then the other person that was in, or there's a couple other folks that were up for it. Chris Tucker was in the talk, but also Michael K. Williams from The Wire was also in consideration for that role, which could have been interesting. But yeah, I think perfect casting decision.
Will Smith has made some pretty baffling career decisions. Not to go on that tangent, but we all know about
passed on the Matrix.
The fact that he passed on the Matrix to do that stupid ass time travel Western thing with Kevin Kline.
Wild Wild West. Hey, good soundtrack. Hey, but Savage, why we still got you? Why don't you talk about a scene? It doesn't have to be your favorite, because like Beware said, we're gonna pass it around probably 2 times for this.
Yeah, man, I could definitely do that. There's I'm gonna talk about 2 scenes real quick. And I hold them at both very high value. The scene in Wolf of Wall Street where they take the lemons, the lemon quaaludes, and he has to go to the country club to make the phone call. And then when he's in the middle of the phone call, his blush.
I can't understand. Say that again.
I said, I was going to last ride.
What the fuck are you saying?
I said,
Are you fucking high?
I didn't want to fly.
John, are you fucking high?
And he just starts slipping, and all of a sudden he turns into, it's almost like his backbone turns into some sort of like gelatin
found
or
a new
spam
phase.
or something.
He found a new phase.
And he just falls down, and then he somehow meanders his way. Rolling down.
Gilbert Grape made an appearance.
Hey, that's a true story
sure.
too. That's a true story. He wasn't in he was in a Mercedes, and it wasn't a Lamborghini.
Not a Lamborghini,
which was so much better in the movie because
right.
Leo does the foot to give it up
to lift the door. Right.
He's so good. That's a great scene. I love
that, and then the fact that they go this whole thing, and he's like, I can't believe I made it home. Blah blah blah. And then it shows him in the morning when he's getting picked up by the feds, and they show the Lamborghini. The Lamborghini is just shot to shit.
I love that.
And obviously none of that happened. I loved it. I thought it was so good. The other scene I want to talk about from Django, it wasn't like a big scene as far as like moving the storyline along. I love the part where they're on horseback, believe it or not, and Django gets into a little bit of an altercation. I think one of the guys calls Django the N-word, and so Django kind of like walks over to him and then rips the horse down. Yeah. And then the guy goes, I broke my collarbone. And and then it goes into, out of nowhere, it goes into a Rick Ross song, 100 Coffins, and it is fucking fantastic.
Yeah, Jamie Foxx wrote that song with Rick Ross.
It's fantastic. You don't hear song like you're expecting to hear Ennio Morricone, like who's in it throughout, who did like Fistful of Dollars and A Few Dollars More and all these other movies. And you're expecting to hear something like that on that scene. Instead, it's Rick Ross talking about I need 100 caskets, blah, blah, blah. And it's fantastic. I love that scene so much. And I actually, between the 2 scenes, it's the scene where it goes into the Rick Ross part. I thought was fantastic. That's my favorite scene.
Savage. I love that. Just while we're on it, I want to say, since it's not my favorite yet, but 3 minutes in to Wolf of Wall Street, Leonardo DiCaprio's almost already crashed a helicopter and blew
in his yard,
as we call it, blowed multiple lines of cocaine into an asshole. You know you're about to be in for a ride. And some of these movies, Uncut Gems, where a lot of people are talking about there's so many articles. It's like, why is this so tense when I'm watching it? It's like, because this is what good movies do and great ones do. And Wolf of Wall Street definitely puts you on a quaalude, some cocaine, some alcohol. You were in there for the ride.
Riding that high.
So I really got to say that intro might be one of my favorite scenes in Wolf of Wall Street, although I'm cracking up so much more. And I really like the way I laughed to that movie. The humor in Wolf of Wall Street's my favorite part. But in Django Unchained, it would be that last scene where Dr. King Schultz says, sorry, I tried. And what pursues after that is the most savage of savage. There is so much shooting, big death, folks.
Real quick. Yeah. Hey, I hate to interrupt you, but can we actually, before we get to that scene, can we actually talk about the scene right before it to kind of build up? Because I just feel like,
hey, we're playing tennis, Doc. You go ahead and tell me all about it.
Because I do appreciate the one that you're about to go into, but I feel like the build up in the previous scene needs to be part of this conversation.
Talk about it.
Really,
talk about it, Doc.
The dinner scene, man. The dinner scene with the tension. You have Sam Jackson's kind of character starting to maybe pick up on what's going on.
See how smart he is.
Steven.
He's smart.
Steven, yep. And you have the, Kerry Washington's character is kind of nervous, doesn't know how to play it. She's kind of given tells. But as they pick up on that, the transition of a very joyful, pleasant, evening where, there are deals about to go down, both sides about to walk away, mutually beneficial, and the winds change really quickly. And you see, you know, and obviously Leo, Calvin Candy's character is just, I mean, honestly, Oscar
lights it up there. Yeah, no,
Oh
he should have won. I think he should have won. It was.
And I know this is probably the most well-known fact about this. So this is, although this is facts with Doc, this is just kind of known
Facts
by
with
now.
Doc.
Scene, as you guys probably all know, when Leo is amping up the intensity and slams his hand down and moves on and gets his hand all bloody. That was all ad-lib, but he obviously didn't intend to, you know, cut himself in the middle of the scene. And if you watch that, you see the other actors like, whoa, and like watching and like looking up at him, like, do you see that you're hurt? But Leo recognizes it and keeps rolling with it. And so they all kind of keep rolling with it too. And you can tell this. And it is the most intense. And you see Leo at several times, kind of, he's acknowledging it and showing it to the camera, like flashing it, like, I'm going to use this.
It's fabulous.
Now. And he amps up his intensity so much. It is.
You know why, Doc? I got it. If you want to volley it over here, it's because of Kerry Washington is a big reason, because that Kerry Washington, who is fabulous in this movie, and she's so gorgeous, man. Every time I see her, I think she's just so gorgeous. And she's fabulous, and I've seen her in a lot of stuff. She's been very active since this movie, but I mean, I'd have to check with the doc, but I'm pretty sure it's a fact that she actually took to wanting to actually feel how it felt to get whipped, and that is so intense. And I think all the actors on set actually viewed that and probably had some emotional, intense responses to that. But what it did is it allowed the actors to want to act better. Everybody wants to turn it up, and how powerful that is. And like I said, like, let's not look at this as a fantasy movie. Let's look at it with relevance. Let's look at how things should be, how you know, heroes we do need, because we still need them. And that's one thing I really do love about Django. But since Doc says the scene at the dinner, then we go to the scene before, when he actually has his reunion with his wife, and she comes out, and he says one thing to her. I can't quote that, but I can quote. Hey,
little troublemaker. You silver-tongued devil.
You silver-tongued.
Yeah, that's the best.
We'll insert
Hey,
that.
hey, little troublemaker.
Hey, little troublemaker.
Yes,
that's the best.
But
that's my favorite. Yeah.
Well, since now and this is going to be wrapping up my greatest, and I'll call this the greatest scene. I've talked about some other ones. The greatest scene I feel like is the end, where the just big death goes on, and there's some funny shit in there too, man. When the guy's getting hit on the ground, I forget what his name is. So, I got it written down here somewhere. Sorry, Jesse. Jesse keeps on getting shot in the kneecap multiple times. He manages to live to like the end of the scene. That shit is action-packed, man. And I also just want to say before I pass it to the doc is, I think this is the most blood Quentin Tarantino has ever spilt or sprayed in an entire movie, including Kill Bill 1, 2. How about that? What do you got to say?
I don't know. Kill Bill's a lot of blood in Kill
Bill.
Man,
these blood splats are crazy.
88 deaths.
Yeah, I think just that, like, so I'm glad that you even brought up that scene, Pat, or all it is right before that, because really, this is just a culmination where you start there and there's this tenseness that's building. Really, since you get out to that home, Calvin Candy's kind of home, there's this intensity that's building and building and building and building. That dinner scene is the climax, obviously. And then there's this release and revenge and like death and blood. And it's like, it's gruesome. It's a lot, but it's a relief almost.
Yeah, you're ready for it. You're so ready for it. It's just every shot. A savage scene, if I will, is when the lady, his wife, I don't have the name in front of me, or his sister, which is once again, why do we have two movies with a little slight incest, a love for a sister and a marriage to cousin? Why do the greatest movies have incest in it? Let's forget about that, folks, and let's talk about when his sister gets shot and she gets fucking pulled out the door. You know, they used extra special effects for that, just to yank her Matrix style out of there. So good, man. It's a celebration.
There's a lot of scenes in Django, that I would call savage scenes, but I'm not. I don't even want to use that term for the scenes that I'm talking about. There's a lot of scenes in it that I didn't like because I found them very hard to stomach. Kerry Washington obviously being whipped, I thought was terrible. I thought, but for whatever reason, like I thought one of the worst things was when you first get introduced to Mr. Candy, and he's in that room, and there's those two slaves, like I forget what one of the guys' name. I think it was like Big Jim or something.
Yeah.
And they're fighting each other like basically to the death, and it's just like it's gruesome. I don't know how much it's needed, but I guess maybe it is probably needed to kind of show like the seriousness of what was going on. Or
yeah, that's part of the plot. They're
right.
there
It's
to
just
buy the
it's
best fighter. The best.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as Quentin Tarantino would go, I would take like The Gimp or something uncomfortable like that over seeing the kind of like really gruesome.
Oh, I'll take the Gimp a million times over.
The doc might have a fact for us. Let's check in with the doc.
Yeah, I just want to kind of roll off of what Savage was saying. Is like that is just a savage scene, but I also agree with Cap. Like it's necessary and kind of building like this is the first time you are introduced to Calvin Candy, and actually Quentin Tarantino says that this is his most despicable character that he's ever written. It is the Calvin Candy, and actually Leonardo Dicaprio. This is only the second bad guy or evil guy that he had ever played. And he actually had a hard time with it.
Wow.
He when filming it on the second day of filming, he was having a hard time using a lot of the racial language and stuff, and kind of had to was kind of cut and taking breaks and stuff because he was having to use some vulgar language. And Sam Jackson pulled him aside and said, "Motherfucker," he said, "come on, pull it together. This is just another Tuesday for us." Like the language and stuff. Like you're not insulting anybody.
Oh. Hey, Doc, I got to say one thing. I've seen a meme one time where it was like when white actors play racist too well. And it's nice to hear that though, man, because you really like acting wonderful. It is a talent, just like any other of the arts. And it's something that the greatest do great. And hey, give it up for Leonardo DiCaprio, one of the greatest actors, if not the best all time, man, because he's a genuine dude. He's trying to save the planet. He's maybe got a little Belfort in him for the women and stuff like that, but he's a fucking dude. And let's pass it back to the doc because I think he's got another fact for us.
Yeah, and I just want to wrap this up because this is that scene is obviously you're seeing Django playing this different role, this different character now, and you're introduced to this, and I love this aspect of him where he is this. What do they call? Like he's a slaver, but he's a kind of a African American slaver, and like he's saying like those are the lowest of the low kind of thing. And so you see him, and he's cocky, and he calls it like it is, and he doesn't give a fuck kind of thing, and plays this attitude. Love that character.
He tells him to do that. He tells him to play that role.
Yep.
He encourages him to play it the best he can. Yeah.
Yep. And one of my favorite scenes is where he's at. So the Mandingo fight ends. The one guy he's kind of foreign. He loses and kind of goes to the bar and has a drink. And Django's at the bar, and he looks over and I can't remember the exact dialogue, but essentially says, "What's your name?" And he says, "Django." And he says, "How do you spell it?"
D-J-A-N-G-O.
Jango, and then he says like the D is silent, and he looks over and he goes, "I know." And apparently that was the guy who played in the original Django Django movie that this is
Facts with Doc.
And so the fact that he says "I know" is like an homage to him, and which is kind of cool.
Hey, Beware, since you were the one that said let's wrap it around twice, you got another scene, and maybe you can end it with like your favorite scene, if you will.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to double down on the fact that scene, the Mandingo scene, I have in my notes that's the most uncomfortable scene I've ever seen in any movie.
Yeah. And we've watched Old Boy, folks. And we've watched
honestly, and I really put this above that. And the way that they show the looks on everybody's face around the room, it really like
that
gives
little
you
incompetent shit.
Everyone, like no matter what side you're on, people are uncomfortable with it, and that's just an intense scene. The other scene that I like, and I'll transition into actually one scene that I don't like, and I find it weird too because it's not like my favorite scenes are some of the craziest scenes. So it's not like this is my favorite scene. These are just good scenes because they rattle you, and I think these movies rattle you. And in that regard, the scene where Django is enslaved after being freed, you forget I forgot. I hadn't seen this movie but once in the theater, and I forgot what happened after they catch him at the end. And when he's upside down all of a sudden and he's caught like that, it's a reality check, and it's just like, oh my goodness, man, what is going to happen here? And then Steven is sitting in front of him talking about how he's not going to make the easy way out, what you'd think would be the worst torture. He's not going to give him the 15-minute, out. He's going to have him breaking down big rocks into small rocks for the rest of his life. And it was just when he described that in detail, that was like heartbreaking. It was really tough to hear, and it was man, and then obviously that makes the end of the movie that much more redeeming. And the scene with the Aussies before the end of the movie too, where
Quentin Tarantino's appearance.
Yeah, where he sets the example for the other slaves and kind of lets them know and kind of helps them see his point of view and see that he actually is on their side.
It's how smart he is.
And yeah, it's that. I love that. But on the flip side of it, I think the scene that I like the most in that movie is probably in Django, is when he's first getting introduced to the bounty hunter ways, and they have to stay overnight, and they see all the KKK Don Johnson crew coming after them.
Jonah Hill in both films.
Yeah, exactly. And you're like, how are these guys going to get out of this situation? You kind of knew something was up because they teased it with the dynamite and the tooth, but when they juxtapose everybody getting blown up with the joke about the eye holes, and it's just really great, classic Quentin Tarantino. And then I really love one shot specifically. They're showing him, like, he's teaching him, you guys mentioned earlier, he's teaching him how to shoot from a long distance, Django, and he gets Don Johnson, and they're only showing his legs riding on the horse, and they show the body fall, and it's the white horse, and they zoom up, and it's just the red horse. That's a really cool shot. On the flip side, going back to Wolf of Wall Street, I was saying to Savage when we watched it, one of my favorite scenes is when they have the strippers come out in the movie, and it's not because it's like the first like gala, if you will, that they have to celebrate their success as a firm. And the strippers come out, and it's just straight debauchery for the first time. And they zoom out, and it's just like they dim the lights, and they put like red infused lights, and they really make it seem like it's hell, like literal hell. Wow. Like you can have whatever you want. Now it's like you don't realize.
Comes at a price.
Yeah, it comes at a price. Whatever you want is going to, put you into the grave, or etc. But I just really love how they set that stage, and they really kind of do it with one single shot, and it's really well done. Obviously, Scorsese's the man, but I love that shot specifically in that movie, amongst a million great shots.
Beware.
You mentioned about Tarantino in that one scene where he kind of makes a cameo in Django, but something that I kind of noticed, I don't know if you guys picked up on this in Wolf of Wall Street. Did you guys notice the cameos in there and that they were directors? A lot of directors that were in cameo roles in Wolf of Wall Street. There were about 3, I think, that I noticed. I don't know if you guys can pick up on any of them.
Notice Spike Jonze.
Spike Jonze is
one. Spike Jonze. I got that one.
I'm stumped.
Oh, yeah. Who else?
I'm also stumped.
Leo's dad.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Rob Reiner. Yeah.
And then his legal aid or legal counsel, Jon Favreau.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good call.
Like, I was like, there's a couple of, like, these are cameos that are interesting, but I was like, oh, they're all kind of directors too. And
yeah, those are like dual role guys because but yeah, I like that. That's a good little bit of trivia. I like that.
That's interesting too, because I noticed there was a lot of small roles, and sometimes you just think because people want to be a good part of a movie. I know fact with Beware was that Jonah Hill, and I'll let Beware tell you, took that role for what, Beware?
He took the role for $10K, which is the lowest that the Screen Actors Guild allows a certain actor to take.
How much was Leo making?
Like $20 million.
Which was a quarter of the movie's budget.
Holy
so
shit.
He is Jordan Belfort.
He is. He loves the money. Hey, but he has to give half of that to the planet, folks.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, real quick, before we move away from scenes, I want to honor one scene that I didn't think much of, but I watched it again and it hit me in a weird way. So So I love the way Django ends. Wolf of Wall Street ends in a different kind of way, in a weird way. And at first, when I watched it the first time, I was like, meh, whatever. But on a second watch, it hit me super differently. And Cap, I know you kind of just recently finished it, so maybe you might have something to say about this too. But as we know, it kind of ends with Leo or Jordan Belfort as he's out of prison. He's trying to move on to the next stage of his life. He's kind of going around being a inspirational speaker. And he's going around doing his bit, sell me this pen, sell me this pen. And the scene is focusing on the audience members. And the audience members are just saps kind of thing. And they want to learn.
Yuppies, the new
Jordan.
school yuppies.
Yeah. And they want to learn from Jordan. And as the end scene, sell me this pen, he goes one to the other. The scene kind of opens up and then pans to everybody. And it's back, like the scene's backlit, which is kind of weird. And it's almost it's like if you were in a movie theater, it's almost as if you're looking at a reflection of yourself, which is kind of weird. It's like,
wow, yeah, how greedy we were.
That are supporting this or feeding into this. And then also you could maybe think like, or are these the people that he's stealing from or kind of made his fortune off of, these gullible people, these people that are they want to get rich and they're willing to kind of give in and give their money. And he's just doing it again. Like these are the victims that he's working off of again. And it hit me differently of like, yeah, all this shit happened. He rose to the top. He met the law, he's starting over. And you kind of start to feel like, okay, cool, he's on his feet. But like you see him just kind of doing the same shit again. And it ends on that. And it's like, whoa.
Well, yeah, like Beware said earlier, he finds his niche. He understands what he's good at, and I think that's a good point.
Also, just to Doc's point though, is like that movie theater viewing. I had a really eerie feeling when I saw that everybody there was this nerd, glasses. I mean, not to stereotype people, but it was meant to do on purpose. You know what I'm saying? And these people were hungry.
Normal looking people.
And I said, is this the new greed? Is this, and the doc said it perfectly. Is this us? And if I want to love a movie for greatness, other than another great movie, like not, and it's going to be because of reasons like that, where Scorsese has done something so visually that you don't even realize how much they slipped on you. Although it's not the main part of the movie, but what a finale. Beware, I know you had something you wanted to say.
The last scene I wanted to bring up, and we can kind of transition out of it, because at the end of the day, all the scenes in both of these movies are great because they're just fantastic films, was the scene when the Steve Madden IPO is launching, and in Wolf of Wall Street, where the Steve Madden IPO is launching, and they have Steve Madden speaks, and he's like trying to speak up on behalf of himself and really trying to get people excited. And it's like nobody's buying into it. He's trying to sell a shoe, he's doing the traditional thing. And he gets stuff thrown at him. He's supposed to be important, and he gets stuff thrown at him.
It's a fat girl's shoe.
Yeah, right.
Hello. For those of you who don't know me, my name's Steve Madden.
Yeah, we know who you are.
Your name is on the box.
Show him the shoe.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, this shoe, this is pretty cool. This is the Mary Lou, which is really the shoe that put me on the map. Without it, I wouldn't be.
It's a fat girl shoe.
Gordon goes up there and starts speaking and gets people, so revved up. He goes into the crowd and he starts butting his head, butting the microphone up against his head. And it's so intense. But it transitioned into a song that it cuts the music, or like right when he basically says, like, sick the dogs on them, turn on the phones, he explains they have this weapon in front of them. The music or the sound cuts and this song plays.
Hey, Leroy, what? Your mama, she calling you, man.
Fantastic.
Upbeat, really fun song. It's just the perfect, top off to that scene. And it's just, I don't know, the way that that all comes together right there, and the editing and everything. It's just, it's peak Scorsese, and it sounds so cliche, but it's just the way he uses editing and music and acting all to his benefit. He's got all the tools in his tool belt, and all the money and actors at his expense, the peak of the peak, and you can just see it sometimes. And that's one of those scenes where it's like, oh yeah, that's right.
Love that.
It's
beware. Real quick, too, is that who was on set that day when they filmed that scene? Steven Spielberg. And he actually gave notes and Scorsese to this day will say that Steven Spielberg co-directed that scene, because he was giving notes and helping out, and obviously editing and things like that, but he was super into it and helped folks with that. Last thing too, before I pass it over to, I think I see a couple eager discussants, but do you guys know who the actor was that played Steve Madden?
No,
I asked Beware, that can't be Steve Madden, can it? And I was like, no, he pulled up a picture of him. I was like, nope, not gonna happen.
It's Dustin Hoffman's son, who is a friend of Jonah Hill's. And so I don't know if there's any more story behind that, but I thought that was an interesting kind of connection.
Love hearing my facts with Doc.
Facts with Doc.
Folks, I think we did talk about a lot of great scenes, and we're talking about two great movies. And I hope you did your homework out there, or this is reminding you of a movie you really love or something. But we need to talk about best characters. And then, of course, yes, you might have pick a favorite. But like we did before, there's so many good things in this that I just don't want you to straight up tell me your best character. I want to hear a little bit about everybody. And I'm going to go ahead and lead it off a little bit that Samuel L. Jackson's character is a huge dynamic in Django Unchained, in that you don't know how intelligent he is. He doesn't have a limp. He has worked his way to such a powerful position in the best way maybe you can. And you almost can't blame him for that when you actually put it into a perspective of survival, folks, because that's what it is. How wouldn't you want to survive? But the fact when they have their drink and he's sipping some cognac, and he's actually like, no, you're getting set up and you don't see it. I'm smart and you're not smart, because that was a stereotype that we're plagued with. And I hope it's not even close as it used to be, but the genius has a color. Are you kidding me? That survival has a color. There is genius all around us, and his character, I think this might be one of Samuel Jackson's best roles ever. So I'm going to go ahead and call that one of my favorite characters, but I'm not going to call that my best character. Broomhilda von Schaft, Kerry Washington, calling my favorite best character. She is fantastic. I think she's the one that set Leo off to slap his hand and give himself some stitches. And best character through and through, both movies. Short second runner-up, Jonah Hill, is freaking fabulous. And the whole reason...
Which movie?
And actually both, to say Savage is a great point. Like he's a good actor, dude, and he's done a great job driving his comedy into other places. And watch, folks, I have a prediction. Jonah Hill's going to be in a movie like Leonardo DiCaprio is in Django Unchained one day, because he's that good. He can play a darker side, a scarier side, and I think that's what we'll see as he grows up with us, folks. Who wants to talk about characters? Savage, you look eager. Why don't you go ahead?
I love Jonah Hill. I love Jonah Hill in serious roles, especially Moneyball being probably one of my favorite roles that he's been in, which isn't on our list.
It didn't make the list. Mulligan.
Which kind of brews an idea for possible future Mulligan. I'll put that on my list.
Mulligan.
But yeah, Jonah Hill does a damn good job. As far as favorite characters, I love Christoph Waltz again, and it's just like I can't stay away from him. He is my favorite character. He does everything that he checks every box, and he's charming, he's noble, he's intelligent, he's a good person, which in a movie very devoid of good people, he definitely stands out. So I would have to go with Christoph Waltz again, like I did for the Inglourious Basterds.
Fabulous, man. And do we have, correct me if I'm not, somebody fill me in, do we not have the same word that's in Inglourious Basterds? Sorry, Brad Pitt says it.
Arrivederci.
Isn't that in this movie too? Did I
Yeah,
catch that right?
He says it in this, and he speaks. Wait, does he speak Italian in it too?
I think there's multiple languages in it too. Just for a second, because somebody says French. Yeah, it's French. I don't know what would be the third one. German. Yeah. Okay. There you go.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Right. Right.
What a fabulous actor. Who wants to talk about characters now?
I'll chime in real quick. We go with title Django, my favorite character. For all the obvious reasons, he's awesome. He's a gunslinger. He's the fastest gun in the South, and he's passionate, and he does everything that he has to do to get his wife back. I think it's awesome. I think that I think it's just it's a really awesome role, and I feel like the role transitions slow enough that it's believable. And like I mentioned with that montage of the winter that they spent bounty hunting before they make it to Candyland, is one of my favorite things. So yeah, I mean, it the character doesn't really exist without Christoph Waltz's character, but Django's just he's the coolest cat in town, so that's my pick.
Beware.
I like Leo's character in both movies the best. I think he just steals the movie in both films. I think in every scene in Django, it's the most intense scene in the movie, which says a lot. Somehow, you don't know whether to trust him or to stab him in the back with the knife. He's just he gives me the creeps actually, and he's equally kind of enthralling in Wolf of Wall Street, but yet in a different way. Not that he's super intense, which he can be, but that his role was intense because he has to be so diverse, because the movie starts off, he's so green. By the end of it, he's this super villain. And I guess by the peak of it, he's a super villain. By the end of it, he's this crippled super villain. And like, he's a shell of himself. And so there's levels to the role. And for that reason, he's just so good in both movies, and that's not to take away from any of the other characters mentioned, because everybody is excellent in their own right, and I could definitely shout out a lot of different people.
Great points, Beware. I think the last episode, I said I liked Leo too much, had a little bit more of a crush on him, so I had to pick a girl, I think, this time, but Leo's my favorite. As y'all viewers out there, our thread, welcome to it, might be starting to know he's one of my favorites. I want to pass it to the doc so he can tell us his favorite character.
Well, it is, since you didn't get a chance to really go in on Leo, and I appreciate you kind of not following your bias into this, but I'll do that for you. And I know Beware already just did a really nice rendition of that. I agree with what Beware said, and I think Leo, he is probably one of my favorite actors, if not definitely top three. And in both these movies, as Beware pointed, he kills it. I specifically want to talk a little bit more about Monsieur Candy, and specifically what I love so much about just generally this character that Tarantino came up with is that he tries to play himself as this kind of otherworldly or kind of cosmopolitan. He's drinking drinks out of coconuts, and he's speaking, or he goes by Monsieur, but he doesn't speak French, and don't do that or you're going to embarrass him. And he's got all those books on his wall, but you can tell he hasn't read them. And even Dr. Schultz, calls him out kind of on that about the Three Musketeers and kind of who the writer was, and that it was a black man, and that sort of thing. And so I love that aspect, that dynamic. And then I just love the intensity that Leo brings to that character. And as I mentioned earlier, like Tarantino says, this is his most despicable character that he's ever written. And actually Leo, again, I brought up this point where he just felt uncomfortable playing it. And Tarantino said, man, you have to go all the way. You have to bring it up to an 11. or else people aren't going to believe this, and you're never going to forgive yourself if you don't go all the way extreme with this character.
Wow.
When you see him in those scenes, like especially like in that dinner table scene where he then has the blood on his hand, he wipes it on Kerry Washington's face, like holy shit, and the way he's grabbing people, and like he's aggressive and he's nasty, and it's oh man, just like
you got those R.L. Steins, Doc.
He's vile, and the intensity that he has, and kind of watching the Mandingo fight scenes, and his literally, I don't know if it's literally, but he's almost frothing at the mouth, and sicking the dogs in that later scene, which is another kind of savage scene.
Scene.
And both that savage scene and the Mandingo scene, Quentin Tarantino actually had to cut way down because he thought that if he would have let those roll out, they were so traumatic that the audience would never forgive him, kind of thing. And so anyways, but Calvin Candy and Leo DiCaprio, I think, in both these movies is just phenomenal.
There's a million quotes in these movies. I think there's some scenes full of great dialogue littered throughout both. There's more specific like punch you in the face quotes in Django, maybe for obvious reasons, you know. I'm going to rattle off a handful that I wrote, so bear with me. You better listen to your boss, white boy. And that's when Django is talking to the guy from Justified, I think his show is.
Yeah.
He's talking to the guy on the horse, and he says, you better listen to your boss, white boy. And he says, I'm going to go walking in the moonlight with you. And he says, you want to hold my hand? It's so good. It's so good.
I love how he refers to him as Moonlight after that. Like that's his new nickname. He calls him.
I love that. I also love later, not too long after that, when the Candyman comes up to Django and he says, your partner's looking a little, disturbed by the scene. I thought he was a Mandingo, expert. And he said, nah, he's just not used to, watching dogs ripping people apart. And he says, you are? And he said, I'm just more used to Americans than he is. Yeah. And I just thought that was super poignant. And it's just like, yeah, Americans are just used to, Americans will do anything to other individuals. They'll rip them apart to get their better half for no reason at all. You know what I mean? Or, for the littlest reason of all. And it was just, that one hit home.
Beware.
And then there's some retribution lines, that two of them in particular that are just so great. After the slave that gets ripped up for only wanting to fight no more than 3 times by the dogs, it's the worst. And then at the end, when Django gets free and they show the whole crew sitting in the shed or whatever, and he's bathing or whatever, and he just pops in there and he goes, D'Artagnan, motherfuckers, and he just starts killing all of them. That's the best. That's so great. And you just feel the ultimate retribution there, and he gives them everything that they deserve, and it's so great. And then lastly is when he sees Broomhilda for the last time, when he goes and picks her up after she thinks that he's dead, presumes he's dead, and she doesn't know what's coming for her, and she's whimpering on the bed, shaking, and then she hears the door open and zooms in, and she's more scared, and then he just says, it's me, baby, and she just, it's perfect. And there's just so many scenes like that in that movie that are just make you feel like honestly, like Wolf of Wall Street does not make you feel.
All right, Beware. I love all those quotes, man. And each of those that you're bringing up brings me back to those scenes, and I love it. I'm going to actually take it back to Wolf of Wall Street. And we already kind of talked about this scene a little bit, but I want to just, some of the things, and I think you made a good point, like all the Wolf of Wall Street ones are just kind of funny. So anyway, so the one scene that is the standout scene is the Matthew McConaughey right in the beginning, where he's doing the chest thump. But pretty much everything that comes out of Matthew McConaughey's mouth is hilarious at this point, where he's asked him if he wants a toot ski, and he's talking about trying to break down the
sound.
Yeah, yes, the sounds. trying to break down the game to him, and he's going, "It's all a fugazi, and like he's just vibing, and I fucking it kills me. And I don't know what the context is when he says this, but the way he says it, I love it. But he goes, "Motherfucker," or something like that. Oh,
motherfucker.
So douchebag. But somebody wants to be him.
And where he says, he's giving him all the things about like you jerk off, twice a day, or how many times you jerk off and that sort of thing. And he's
Rookie
like,
numbers.
This is not a tip. This is a prescription. I love that. Like saying like, this isn't just a passing comment. Like you're going to do this. Like you have to do this. And
Hey, Cap, do you think those are rookie numbers? What, 3 times a week? Would that be rookie numbers? Would you need to get your numbers up?
I wouldn't know anything about that.
All right, fair enough. I would say that's rookie numbers. It depends. It depends what your stage is at life.
And then my last one is the one that I love, and again, this brings it back to my love of Calvin Candy, but where they're kind of introduced. It's that same scene where the Mandingo fighting, and they're kind of introducing themselves, and where he says, "Gentlemen, you had my curiosity, but now you have my attention." I love that. Love that.
Money.
That's a great line.
I like that, Doc.
And this is my last quote. I just forgot. I forgot that I had it, but I had it scrolled up on my list and saw it. And it's probably one of the most normal quotes, but for some reason it killed me. It's when Django and the Doc are doing their winter bounty hunting thing, and they come to a camp, and there's an old guy there, and he says, "Come on in. Had a birthday yesterday. Got some cake. Pretty good."
I had that wrote down. It's pretty good. Hey, ladies and gentlemen, these are 2 freaking great films. Leo's the man. He really should have won an award for that. Doc, if you had any, do you have the awards pulled up for these movies? Let's go to that real quick before we go to the vote. We're going for the vote. But Doc's going to tell us about these awards because Leo should have won.
All right. So both of these movies were nominated for Academy Awards. They happened in sequential years, so 2013, 2014 awards they were recognized in. So Wolf of Wall Street was nominated for, 5 Academy Awards and did not take home any. Interesting. Yep. And then Django was nominated for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and took home 2. Specifically, they took home Best Actor in Supporting Role, Christoph Waltz, and then Best Writing Original Screenplay, Quentin Tarantino. And so taking it back to Wolf of Wall Street, they were nominated for Best Performance by an Actor in a Leading Role, Leonardo Dicaprio, Best Performance by Supporting Role, Jonah Hill, Best Director, Scorsese, Best Writing and Adapted Screenplay, and then Best Motion Picture, and didn't take home any of those. And then Django was nominated for, as I mentioned, supporting role and writer, won, and then also Best Motion Picture and Best Achievement in Cinematography and Sound Editing. Who they lost to is really interesting because these are pretty competitive years. All right, so Django for Best Motion Picture of the Year lost to Argo, and which I thought was interesting. And then
I don't like that.
So Leo actually wasn't even nominated for Best Actor in a Supporting Role, which is really interesting during this year. Christoph Waltz was nominated for Best Supporting Acting Role, and then during Best Performance for Actor in a Lead Role, nobody from that movie was nominated, which is interesting. And sorry, one last thing that I thought.
Sure, Doc, always.
Wolf of Wall Street was actually nominated for Best Picture, and it lost the year afterwards, and it lost to 12 Years a Slave, which is interesting. So the year that Django didn't take it home, the year before, the next year, 12 Years a Slave took it home.
Yeah, that is a fantastic film. Yeah, both are great films. And truthfully, when the doc talked about that end scene, where that was the only time for just a millisecond, I thought that I would vote for Wolf of Wall Street ever. Folks, I don't love Wolf of Wall Street for the reasons why it doesn't make me want to be rich. It is great. It's so funny, but in the end, it's bad people, and they're under that microscope of greatness. And my greatness, I think I need to have great people and good people. And I'm not a fan of Jordan Belfort. So I'm calling for the vote, folks. And I am going to call for a lightning round because I predict, all it is here predicts that we're going to have a sweep for Django and I want everybody to speak their truth. And if not, I want to hear about why they're going to vote for Wall Street. But I'm calling my vote right now for Django Unchained, and I'm passing it to the doc.
Yeah. So
yes, victorious. Yes, Doc, I love it. Hey, we got some more to discuss, so I'm going to pass it to Beware. I just want to hear that vote. I think we got a sweep coming. Let's see.
Well, real quick, one thing I wanted to bring up, before casting my vote, is that one thing we noticed along the way is Wolf of Wall Street is essentially the same exact movie as Goodfellas, and also similarly half of Martin Scorsese's later movies, Casino, Departed, Irishman, in that it's a movie about somebody's rise and rise and fall within a kind of deceptive career path, and it's very entertaining to watch as the viewer, but it also takes you on this roller coaster ride that by the end of it you're just beat up and kind of miserable along with the main character and lead in the movie. And half of them have to deal with feds and illegal activity. All the movies I mentioned have to do with feds and illegal activity, actually. Maybe Casino doesn't, if I recall. But either way.
Oh, definitely does.
It does,
they were
for
on
sure.
the line.
Yeah.
They were there.
That one. But you get my point. It's
Absolutely.
just that it's there. It's like a storyboard. It's a format that Scorsese does, and he just drops different, career paths, for lack of a better word, into the framework. And every movie's great because he really knows how to execute them. But also, it's pretty similar in that regard. And when you've seen one of them, you've seen a few of them. And this one is definitely the most debaucherous of all of them. But to that point, Django is similar in a regard that Tarantino kind of has this rewriting history template that he's now using. But this one at the time felt very fresh in that regard. Like I hadn't seen anything like it. And when I rewatched it, it felt even more timely and more rewarding. And Django definitely, while I thought that Wolf of Wall Street might take that lead when I came into this, having not seen Django in a while, Django's definitely getting my vote. It's definitely the more rewarding movie in every regard, and it's equally as good and well made as Wolf of Wall Street. It's just that much more rewarding as the viewer.
All great points, and I'm glad we're here with Beware because Beware really did break it down. So with the breakdown, we're going to pass it down to Savage for his vote. Savage, what do you got to say?
Yeah, I wanted to hit on one point that Beware was talking about. I meant to talk about it earlier with Scorsese specifically. Scorsese movies in the last 30 years, everyone has like the impending RICO case coming up where there's this conspiracy and this thing happening. And Casino for sure has that. The Departed obviously has that. There's all these movies that do the same thing. That being said, he does a fantastic job at it. Also, it's difficult for me to vote against a movie that has Margot Robbie in the way that she presents herself in this movie. Just putting it out there. But my vote is for Django.
Wow.
As much as I right.
He is so hot in that too. Oh my goodness.
Hey, real quick, we can reflect on the scene. Reflect on the scene where she's in the room with her legs.
Sick and tired.
Yeah, and what are the guys' names? What are the security in the Donnie and Donnie, or it's two guys with the same name?
I have it, folks.
They had Rocco and Rocco. Say hi.
Bruno and Bruno.
See that? Huh?
That's close. I'm gonna edit it in.
Right.
Hey, we all took a stab at it. But hey, Savage, I appreciate that, and I almost forgot about how fucking gorgeous she is in that film. And I'm glad you brought that up. But Cap, what's your vote?
I'm gonna swim. I'm gonna swim with the fishies, and I'll say Django as well.
Yes, he didn't play the heavy, folks.
It's a better plot to me, the way that the movie moves along, and I just think it's more. The subject matter to me is better, and I can't see. I can't go back to the. I always go back to the bad taste that Wolf of Wall Street left in my mouth the first time I saw it. And granted, I can definitely appreciate it. It's not one of my favorite movies as far as the plot goes. So yeah, Django all the way.
Your instincts were there, Cap. Well, Cap, what?
Cap's just that gen of a guy that his body had like a visceral reaction after watching the movie. He just was not feeling it. His body was pushing it away.
Cap said, he told us, man. Hey, Cap, what if I told you that I'm going to the hat?
Ooh.
I'm going to the hat, ladies and gentlemen. I'm about to go to the hat. I got it in front of me, folks. I'm going to do a little shaky because we know that Django Unchained is going to the next round, folks. It swept the bracket battle, and I thought it should, and I thought it would. I love when there's opposing, opinions, and we touched on why Wolf of Wall Street is good. My favorite highlight was when Doc told me about that end scene. That's really going to stick with me. I'm going to watch it again, but don't let me hold you up, folks. I got my fingers and these little prickly things, and they each have 2 movies on them, and I don't know what I'm going to pick because I'm shuffling them up good tonight, folks. But I have 2. You got to separate it sometimes and go to 1. Now I have 1. It feels extra small. And, folks, I tell you, every week it's so small. I have it in reverse. So my first look's a no-go. My second look, I have it upside down and to the right, and now I have the movies covered with my thumb, folks, and I am about to lift my thumb from the movie and read you folks out there next week's Battle Bracket Breakdown. Ladies and gentlemen, one of the movies is The Truman Show, folks. How about that? That is a great movie, and some of our members here might remember what it's going against, but I'll tell you folks out there, because you've been so patient and waited with me, Arrival. Truman Show versus Arrival. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the night. Deep breath. And then ask our thread members if for some reason they're not excited about this battle breakdown, and if they are going to use their mulligan like we've seen the last 2 weeks in a row, folks. The first person I got to pass it to is Beware. And then we'll see what happens, folks. Here we go. Beware.
I don't want to watch Arrival.
Mulligan!
Folks, ladies and gentlemen, Beware has used his mulligan, and he's used it for a great movie. This isn't a joke, folks. The Town is a great movie. I think all of our thread members have seen it. We don't know. But before, and maybe you can tell me when it's your turn to vote, if you're going to vote The Town through to replace Arrival, a fairly new movie, Extraterrestrials, hey, I like it. But we're going to go to the Doc for his vote.
So all it is, I've actually not seen it. So I don't know if I'm the only thread member that has not seen it, but I've not seen The Town. That said, I have seen Arrival, and I wasn't that impressed when I first saw it. And I agree with Beware's sentiment that I don't even know if I want to rewatch it. Like, there are good aspects about it, but I don't know. And so I'm more willing to give a movie that I haven't seen a shot than to rewatch Arrival. So I'm going to go with The Town.
Hey, Doc, I appreciate that. Now the folks out there know what the mulligan rule is. It's replacing great with greater. And I've seen Arrival. I'm a big fan of anything that has to do with aliens and stuff, just because I'm into that or that type of sci-fi stuff. But sci-fi movies are not my favorite. I would go with drama or dramedy. And I'm going to go ahead and actually vote for the yes on Beware, bringing The Town, a movie I haven't viewed in a long time, into this replacement discussion. And now we're going to go to Savage. Now, folks, just remember really quick that 80% of our thread members have to vote yes for this to pass. But so far, there's been 3.
I'm going to vote no.
Savage.
I'm voting no. Arrival over The Town.
Okay, and folks, we can't talk about the movie yet. That'll be for next week. So it really comes down to Cap. Cap, we need to hear your vote. If you vote no, then we are under 80%, and we stick with Arrival versus The Truman Show. 2 great movies. Maybe one is good, replaced with greater. Who knows? Cap?
Man, I am...
Cap, he made you think. Has he stumped you? That's a pretty good movie. I know we all enjoy it. Casey
I'm
Affleck,
really torn. I do like Arrival a lot. I've seen The Town more times than Arrival. I wouldn't be. Who?
Wow, Beware did a tough thing, man. But that's good, man.
I've got to think about the artwork too. Shoot.
Oh, Cap! Hey, we're in with the artist. Hey, Arrival would have been pretty dope, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
I know, but it would have just kind of been a cylinder, probably stuck in the grass. So maybe not.
I think that Arrival is a pretty great movie, and I think I'm gonna make Beware watch it. I think I'm gonna vote it down. I think I'm going with Arrival.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not if you're tuning in, folks, it's getting really intense here. But what we have is a vote that didn't go through. So Beware is then rewarded his mulligan back, and we will next week watch The Truman Show versus Arrival, unless someone else on our thread proposes their mulligan.
I'd like to use a mulligan.
Ladies and gentlemen, Cap, give us your mulligan. There can only be 2 per episode, and I know the doc had his hand up, but the doc has used 2 mulligans, and he has his mulligan still. There can only be 2 proposals for mulligans in episodes, so this will be the last mulligan that can be proposed and can replace a movie. So, Cap, for the folks that are probably, might have their R.L. Steins, they might be a little confused. Can we set it straight from and tell them what your mulligan is?
Well, I wasn't planning on it, but I feel like I maybe not get another shot at this. And while I do like the movie Arrival, and I do like the movie The Town, Arrival was one of the ones that I felt like could have, if I was going down the list to use my mulligan, could have come off. I would like to propose Silver Linings Playbook. I feel like it is
over what? Arrival? Over
Arrival.
We have another Arrival.
I would definitely keep Truman Show, but I feel like Silver Linings Playbook is, it's a David O. Russell film, and none of his movies made the list. And I feel like it's a fantastic love story, and I feel like it's also one of maybe De Niro's best role in his later career. So if I had my 30 seconds to pitch it, that is it.
That is definitely it, Cap. It's a good movie. I know we'd been talking about the mulligan rule a lot lately on our thread. I'm going to go last. Savage, tell me yes or no, please. Wow,
this is a hard one. I'm
tricky,
sorry.
Huh?
I'm sorry. This is a hard one.
Great with greatness. Greater. It's tough. Do you want to take a pass for a second?
I would have taken Silver Linings Playbook over Truman Show, but I will not take it over Arrival.
Wow, he's a fan of Arrival, folks. Okay, we have our first no. Beware. You didn't want to watch Arrival, so are you with the Cap on this one?
Yeah, I suppose. I'm not really into
That's a yes.
Honestly, I'm going to say no.
Wow.
Beware.
I'm going to watch Arrival.
Okay.
Fair enough.
Is it already out?
It's out.
It's out. I'm not going to vote then. Folks, I'm not going to hold you up anymore. I am going to pass it to the doc, though, because, Doc, what do you think about this mayhem that's been going on ever since you proposed the first mulligan ever? It's been pretty much chaos ever since that time, Doc.
I love it. And I love it because we recognize that although we nominated 64 movies to be in this bracket, that this bracket isn't perfect, and we really hold the integrity of this bracket serious. And we each have our personal preferences, of course, and we want what's best. And there are certain movies on our list that we think are worthy of getting replaced. And I love that people came prepared. I love that people had movies in their back pocket, and I love that it ensued an additional conversation after the fact. It is kind of unfortunate because I think that we all it sounds like Cap and Beware, and I know myself, so that's 3 of the 5 on the discussing panel. I don't know about All It Is and Sav, but like 3 of the 5 agree that Arrival is probably one of the ones that we want to get replaced. But to mulligans were used and 2 were turned down, and so we are going to have to watch it per our rules. But I think that, you know, there's some other movies potentially that we can nix as a result of this, and I think that
Apocalypse Now.
What's that?
I'm sorry.
I heard him. Folks, who knows when that gets pulled out of
accidentally
the
said
hat.
Apocalypse Now when I was coughing. It was just a weird, like, symptom.
You'll never get my vote. You'll never get it.
Hey, folks, we might all have one in mind. That's been the new name of the game, is to have yourself maybe a mulligan on deck, which is going to call hopefully for extra homework. Maybe a movie you've seen in the past, maybe a movie you've seen recently. But folks, we're here to find the greatest. And I love the excitement that it comes with pulling stuff out of a hat, knowing what I have to watch next week. Truman Show, fantastic film. Arrival, probably I loved it after I walked out of the theater, and now I'm going back to it, and I'm going to find out. So
It is a great movie.
Fantastic movie.
It's very original.
All of my thread members out here know that I'm into conspiracy research and realms unknown, if you will, the X-Files. I'm a really big fan of that, but somehow, since I am such a big fan of that, that's my hardest. I'm the hardest on those types of films for realisticness, for what I have found. But anyways, folks, next week we have Arrival versus The Truman Show. I'm excited, and I'm going to get into one of them very soon. I don't know what the extra credit will be. I don't think any of those are books or nothing out there. And I just want to get into the leisure of summer. But hey, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for tuning in this week. If you're feeling a little tired tomorrow, grab yourself a 5-hour energy and just, get that 2:30 feeling knocked out of there. And a special shout out to our sponsor tonight. But I'm happy to be here with my pals, ladies and gentlemen. And I'm hoping that you tune in with us next week. And why don't you go do your homework with us? It's fun. Sometimes it's hard. Hey, sometimes you turn it in late. Sometimes you might cheat on the test a little bit. It's okay, folks. Hey, whatever way you get it done. I'm All It Is here with Doc, Beware, Savage, and Cap, ladies and gentlemen, my pals. I love you all.
Oh, man.
We'll see you next week.
Au revoir.
Good morning.
Morning.
Oh, and in case I don't see you, good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Well, it's very, homey.
What? Are you kidding? We got us a family here.
I hope you realize how you've hurt my feelings.
I'm afraid you're just too darn loud. Next place.
Just take it easy, man.
I'm perfectly confident.
Yeah, waving the fucking gun around?
Calmer nuance.
Look, I made a mistake, all right? It didn't make any difference anyway.
Hey, I'm letting it go. But don't say it doesn't matter. Every line matters.
Get off my back!
Don't fuck with my plane!
And like that, he's gone.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Our Thread Podcast, bringing our content to you, featuring All It Is.
It's official, old buddy. Well, has been.
Beware.
From then on, he was known as Benny the Jet Rodriguez.
The Doc.
You're the doc, Doc.
The Cap.
Oh, if you already know the answers to your questions, then why ask? Big fuck.
And myself, Savage.
I'm 6'5", 220, and there's 2 of me.